What's going on, y'all, and welcome back to another Epic 7 video. Yesterday on stream we went from Champ 5, where I'm AFK collecting all my skystones, and we went all the way up to Legend 1, the #1 spot in ranked arena. Additionally, guys, this was a full auto setup, meaning I press the auto button at the top, let the AI take over, sit back, and let it do all the hard work. On top of it too, I cleared every single defense out there, so I wasn't pick and choosing certain comps that I was good against. These type of units I'm going to show you are good against the entire field. You just got to swap out a few key pieces here and there. Now, if that sounds sweet to you, maybe you're not trying to get the #1 spot, but you just want to get your toes into legend, or just complete your weekly or daily arenas without having to work for yourself, you know, you're lazy like me, then this guide is definitely for you. So stay tuned for all of it. I got some quick disclaimers for y'all, and then we'll break it all down. Now, real fast before we start, guys, this is not a free-to-play friendly guide for newer players. If you've only been playing 3 to 6 months and you're strictly free to play, you're not going to have a lot of these Moonlight 5 stars and limiteds that I'm talking about, and that's okay. As a new player, you probably shouldn't be doing a full auto comp setup to get the highest rank possible in arena PvP. That just shouldn't be a thing. This is more for my mid to late game players that have developed their unit pool, that have the gear to press that full auto button, because you're at a big disadvantage. It's a lazy way to get, you know, free arena points, and that's why we're using these powerful units that work in a certain way. But once you guys understand the, you know, the knights, the bruisers, the counter units that I'm looking for here, you can probably make some substitutions, and your mileage might vary. Maybe you'll find some stuff, and later down the line, guys, hey, maybe I'll try to focus on more free to play friendly accessible units. It's just we use these units because they work so well to the highest level of arena. And the second thing I want to mention real fast is to give a shout out to Derp the Jag, who is actually holding the #1 spot in arena at the time. He was in my chat, and if he wanted to, he could have easily kept me out of that #1 spot, but for the content, and because a lot of people in my chat were also hitting his defense, hitting my defense, things could have went a lot of different ways, but he graciously, you know, sat out until I got that #1 spot. Your mileage might vary, guys, depending on the day you hit, depending on who is ahead of you to get those, you know, free sky stones, or if you're trying to hold Legend 1, whatever it is. My climb was not to say it was like a competitive integrity thing by any means. It was just for the content, for fun, to do it full auto, etc. Second, real fast, shout out to Zayen, who was helping me, you know, formulate a lot of these comps and brainstorm them. So thank you, guys. All right. Quickly talk about the overview, guys. We have a mitigation knight here in the form of Last Rider Crowl. He's going to be on Arya, but I'll specifically show each and every character we're going to discuss that I used in the climb, and I'll show their stats, artifacts specifically. Right now, just broadly speaking, we have a mitigation knight front line who provides a ton of damage as well. Arya is our main damage dealer for a majority of the comps. She's just really, really nice in that role. Has Bastion of Hope for extra effect resist for the team as well. May Chloe was our cleanser / attack up of choice, but this can be a lot of different units. She's just nice because she provides sustain, attack up, and extra effect resist for units like Arya. And the Kawazu is going to be our flex DPS role that we swap out most often for a lot of other units, but when we fight comps that have Destina, which was a ton of them, she's so annoying. She stalls out comps, and when we're running units like Arya, it just takes forever. So Kawazu being able to snipe that out is very, very nice. But other key units are Lone Crescent Bologna, just an amazing auto damage dealer as long as we're not fighting problem units like Light Auden, for example, Edward Elric. You can swap this with Champion Zerato, but obviously we bring him versus debuff units like Rand, Caesarea, Pirate Captain Flan. I talked about Seaside Bologna, I think, but if I didn't, just an amazing, hopefully you guys have access to her. She's limited, but I think a lot of people have her. Very nice on full auto. Be careful of a lot of earth units. And then Landy was just another one of our bruisers that I was trying out that worked really well. Just be careful of fire units, obviously. There's some other units like Lionheart and Nirvana that I didn't necessarily use too often in my climb, but obviously very nice. I'll try to write at the very end of the video some extra units that I've heard, or maybe I tried a little bit, just didn't feature them too much in this. Let's go ahead and take a closer look and start with Last Rider Crowl. I don't think I needed to do too much explanation, and real fast, most of these units, with the exception of Inferno Kawazu, are just on my real-time arena build. So good news is you don't have to swap too many things around specifically just for this full arena setup. But Last Rider Crowl, no explanation needed, provides mitigation. I think Aureus is the safest. You guys can run whatever mitigation or knight artifact you want. If you run Aureus, though, just make sure you have a lot of health. But this is going to make sure your, you know, other units survive, while he's also pumping out some crazy damage with his skill 3. That's the basis of it. He provides defense and mitigation on top of doing some crazy damage, because these matches go longer. We're going to grind them down, and by the time he's using this for the first, second, third time, he's doing so much damage, and he's cycling super fast because we're fighting AoE units like Bellion in a lot of matchups as well. So you can use a different knight, guys. Just understand you might run into lack of damage, so make sure you make up that in somewhere else. And if you have Last Rider Crowl, he's very, very nice for this setup. Now, after Last Rider Crowl, let's talk about the Soul Weaver spot. I opted for Maid Chloe. Your artifact can be whatever you want. Like I said, this is for RTA. This is how I run her in RTA. I will say though, guys, when I started climbing higher up, especially to like Legend rank 2 and 1, a lot of the Angel Light Angelicas were easily catching me with 200 effect resist, even with her passive, even with the bonus 20 from Shamadra's and the 20 from passive, and then Bastion on top of that. So sometimes y'all might want to just use something else like Destina, who has, you know, a lot higher effect resist, especially on turns 1 and 2. But Maid Chloe was great because, like I said, because of the revive, because of the attack up, and she just gives a lot of sustain as well. So Maid Chloe is a good spot, but this definitely is a flexible option spot. Just get something with sustain. If you guys have some damage, Meteor to Queric might work as well to fight those pesky Angel of Light Angelicas. But this spot is very flexible. I think Maid is just the safest and best one for me overall. Next up, guys, we have Arya, who did a lot of heavy lifting. There's so many comps that this girl just destroys. Now, be careful of comps that have a lot of earth units, so Destina plus Ascenia, for example. If it's just Destina alone and then you have another heavy DPS like Infernal Kawazu, Arya will be just fine. The reason she's so good, though, is she protects the team and then provides just some insane damage. And with Bastion, we have a lot of utility as well. So if you have an Arya built for RTA, just make sure she has a lot of bulk, a lot of defense, especially for the damage, and then enough effect resist. Slap on Bastion as well. You guys should be just fine. If you have Maid on top of that too, extra fine. And then she kind of just slowly grinds your opponents down while keeping them safe and countering like crazy, right? We all know what Arya does as well. Now, Infernal Kawazu is interesting. This is the flex spot, meaning we're going to swap this out here and there. The main goal of Kawazu was to kill the Destina. So, quick note, guys. When you fight Destina comps with Kawazu, you want to press the auto button and then quickly click Destina. It'll show a red circle, and that means the AI is going to target her. Sorry, there's an extra click on the full auto setup, but it's not too bad. Now, here's the build. I just slapped on some gear, guys. Don't worry about this being too impressive. If you guys can have even more attack than me, then the more Destinas you'll be able to kill. But around this range, you'll be fine. And on a lot of the footage you might be watching, I don't know what I'm throwing in the background, but my Kawazu was actually on a scuffed build. He was way faster, like 200 speed, and a lot of times he was too fast, meaning he would proc his vigor buff and then use his skill 3 before he was even fully locked and loaded. So make sure he's slower. That's going to be good because you can just slap on whatever attack boots you have and get him to higher, closer to 5k as you can, so he can pop those problem units like Destina, like I keep mentioning. Other than that, just give him a ton of bulk so he survives, and make sure he just does a ton of damage. I have a lot of wasted stats here too. Don't sweat it too much. Just make sure he has the skill 2 exclusive equipment. Uberi's Tooth is the artifact that I like to rock because it just adds additional damage, but whatever works for you guys. Okay, so let's talk about the units that we're going to swap around. For Kawazu, if we're going to be fighting units like Auden, then let's change out that dark spot for any other unit, like let's say, for example, Seaside Bologna. This is kind of my RTA build. Lifesteal, Rengar's Drink, good into units like Auden, and just provides a ton of AoE damage. He was the one of the original counter units, you know, not exactly a counter with the way the passive works, but, you know, 5 focus, claps back, defense break, a lot of sustain, a lot of damage versus AoE units. Just a very nice unit overall, and with the drink she can fight evasion units as well. So if you guys have this, a nice option. Just be careful of fighting too many earth units like Senya, Violet, Destina, whatever that might be. Landy is one I was using as well, guys, with Bloodstone. This one, be very careful, right? Obviously fighting anything with a lot of AoE. If your Landy is squishy, you might die, but with some bulk, like I have in my build in Bloodstone, any comp that was like trying to stall me out, Landy was a fine option that worked very, very well. Provides extra healing as well. Never was in danger of dying. Does so much damage, especially the longer the match progresses. Kind of nice matchup with Last Rider Crowl, things like that. This is a good option as well. Now, I think one of the other key units that I used a ton were these two right here, Lone Crescent Bologna. So obviously with LCB, Lone Crescent Bologna, don't fight her into units like Auden. But my build has effect resist. Some of you guys will have even higher stats. I have this once again for RTA because with Maid, you know, we have like over 100 effect resist. We can shrug off light debuffs. But for full auto, if you guys have more damage than me because you don't have effect resist or you're like on a counter setup, you'll do even better with this girl than I did. Sigurd Scythe just for the sustain. This girl works beautifully. Bring her into Bellions, bring her into anything. The dark typing is actually really nice. Just watch out for Audens like I keep mentioning. Another key unit is Edward Elric, guys. Edward is great. Bring him into units like Ran. If you fight units like Caesarea, I think I fought a few Ran, Caesarea, Pirate Captain Flan comps here and there. He's amazing, right? You don't use him a ton, but he was made for this mode because he has that, you know, equivalent exchange. Claps back with the damage. Full auto works just fine. Very tanky. Has a lot of sustain. So you're kind of seeing you're kind of seeing the trend here, guys. Bring units that have some sustain, either via Sigurd's Scythe, Lifesteal set, Bloodstone like on the Landy, and then when they're all Bruiser built and behind Last Rider Crowl, have sustain with Maid or the backup revives, none of these units are going to die. They're going to be doing their job on full auto and just grind your opponents down very easily. So once you understand the setup, you just swap units here and there for whatever you guys might have access to. Let's say you miss the Edward Elric banner. I think Champ Z will work just fine in that role. You might need to give him more damage because Edward is, really nice, especially when he scales up with those scaling skill 3s. But once again, understand the setup. We have mitigation. Speaking of, last but not least, guys, I had the Crow to fight Rimuru comps as they were becoming more relevant, or more prevalent, I should say, the higher up I got. Same thing here, guys. Crow, he's on some basic, really ugly, I don't even want to show y'all, but some really, really free-to-play, like 70 chests here. Guild War setup comps just to soak the damage from Rimuru. And then maybe if he gets a bonus kill with his skill 3, that's fine. Destina, we talked about a little bit. We're going to use her versus those specific comps. Or if you don't have Maid Chloe, the higher effect resist is nice. She provides sustain. Just remember, you lose out on the attack up, which is very nice in combination with units like Landy, Seaside Bologna, Lone Crescent Bologna, and even units like Kawazu. So that's why we use Maid. That attack up is going to speed things up. But if you guys don't have too much worry about speed, you can use whatever Soul Weaver you have access to. Use whatever Knight you have access to. You're just going to have to make up some key parts here and there, namely either damage, the attack up spot, like I mentioned. But all those roles, once you start understanding the flex, the swap ability, I think you guys will do just fine, if you're missing a few pieces here and there in terms of unit selection. So if you have any additional questions, guys, let me know. That's how it works on full auto. This currently fights every single comp that you find in the meta. And yeah, not much else to say beyond that, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.